What is the meaning of life? Does it even have meaning in the first place? There were many attempts to give answers to the meaning of life by religious leaders, philosophers, and even scientists. One of those attempts to answer the question regarding the meaning of life is that by Friedrich Nietzsche, a German philosopher, best known for his statement, "God is dead." However, Nietzsche's solution to the problem of nihilism and attaining true happiness is through the increase of one's power. The concept of will to power by Nietzsche is central to his philosophy. The will to power is an innate force that propels people to act in ways that ensure their survival and benefits, or a more commonly interpreted definition is the manifestation of power. For much of human history, we have placed meaning and purpose on God or religious doctrines. Since the dawn of civilization, the relationship between man and God has been inseparable, as God is believed to have always provided an answer to all questions about the natural world and moral laws. However, since the Enlightenment, natural law has divided man and their gods. Men could no longer look for answers from a higher power, but are now condemned to find their own purpose. The idea of will to power originated from author Schopenhauer's irrational force called will, which is the main motivation behind humans' will to live and sexual desire. The will is the root cause behind much of human suffering because it's insatiable. Additionally, Schopenhauer believed that the will to live and procreate is even more fundamental than existence itself. Hence, for Schopenhauer, the desire for self-preservation and procreation is the main purpose of existence. However, Nietzsche has a different view from Schopenhauer's will, and it's often misinterpreted or intentionally used to justify the actions of individuals to conquer others for the sake of power. For instance, some of the Nazis used Nietzsche's will to power to justify their quest for power. But the desire to overcome others wasn't what Nietzsche had in mind when it comes to the will to power, but the struggle against nature that culminates in our personal development, self-perfection, and self-overcoming. This is the form of the will to power that Nietzsche called self-overcoming, and it's what we are focusing on. Here, our actions are motivated by the desire to master ourselves and our environment. This form of will to power could be understood as the means of exerting one's power to master their surroundings. Think of a lion hunting a zebra. It's merely a form of self-mastery, as the lion has mastered her hunting skills and her environment to successfully hunt her prey. In the animal kingdom, only those that have self-mastery can struggle against the harsh environment. The hunter dominating the prey is merely a coincidence, or the byproduct of the desire for power over oneself and the environment, but not the direct intention. Nietzsche believed that organisms do not exert themselves for the sake of self-preservation, but to attain more power, which results in the dominance of their environment. Above all, a living thing wants to discharge its strength. Life itself is the will to power. Self-preservation is only one of the indirect and most infrequent consequences of this. The struggle for dominance and power is not a form of annoyance to the species, but a necessary tool for growth. Then, power is derived from our suffering with annoyances and being thwarted during our struggle to accomplish our goals. Thus, the ultimate desire of all organisms is power. Power is a sense of becoming a better version of ourselves through the continuous struggle with life's difficulties. Human beings do not seek pleasure and avoid displeasure. What human beings want, whatever the smallest organism wants, is an increase of power. So, the will to power is what motivates us to seek power over ourselves and the environment. This overcoming of oneself is accomplished with the will to power, which can help one to attain happiness, overcome nihilism, and attain greatness. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, a sage came out of his long isolation in the mountain to share his wisdom with the world. Here, we are introduced to the idea of the Übermensch, or the overman, meaning humanity is to be overcome, and life is constantly something which we must overcome. The act of overcoming the self is both physical and mental, yet only through the overcoming of stress, resilience in the face of hardship, and self-criticism can we become an Übermensch. This transcended human was Nietzsche's remedy to the nihilism that was spreading through post-Enlightenment Europe. The overman must face all kinds of hardships and internal struggles with self-doubt, fear, insecurity, and ignorance. The overman is the final stage of the metamorphosis of the child. According to Nietzsche, there are 3 stages of metamorphosis: the camel, the lion, and the child. To become a camel, one must overcome one's pride and humble oneself. This is a recognition that we are not that great, so we must be willing to step out of our comfort zone to take up more challenges. The lion is where an individual is capable of rejecting social conventions and traditions, while the child is the transformation of the acceptance of life through creativity and childlike play. The mind of the child is one that is constantly chained to the present, is filled with joy, creativity, and playfulness, and is capable of creating one's own values and reality. The final stage of the overman is where man is capable of creating his own values and focuses on his current life, not the afterlife. The overman can overcome social norms and conventions and rise above all difficulties that life throws at them. Man is a rope, tied between beast and overman, a rope over an abyss, a dangerous going across, a dangerous on the way, a dangerous looking back, a dangerous shuddering and staying still. Nietzsche. This means that either we descend to a beast or ascend to an overman, or remain men forever. All paths are dangerous for man. If all paths are filled with suffering and pain, it's logical for us to assume that the best option for us is to ascend toward the overman, even at the risk of one's own life. Only then can one live an honorable life. Thus, happiness for the overman is achieved through the increase of power by overcoming all challenges that life has to offer. The overman is different from the last man, as the last man prefers comfort and conformity and is afraid of doing difficult things. Their source of happiness comes from being the same as others around them. Happiness is found through overcoming hardships that life throws at us. We must internalize our inner and outer struggles before our eventual overcoming of man. This process is a continuous one, as life is constantly filled with suffering and challenges. But at each iteration, we become more powerful and thus more happy as we have mastered ourselves and our environment. Thus, to seek true happiness, we must remove ourselves from the desire to conform or seek comfort, and seek out challenges that will result in the increase of our power. Internalize our struggle and overcome it. Only then can we become the overman.